I just launched my very first PDF pattern under Avajulis Crafts, and this is the Wendy Bucket Bag, aka the slip pocket bag, because she has 4 slip pockets on each side of the main body and 2 slip pockets on the interior. Now this is a soft and slouchy bag. This is not a structured bag at all, but you can make it structured if you want. So the main closure is a reset zipper closure. We have a top handle with the option of adding a crossbody strap, and this project is our very first intermediate project for Avajulis Craft community. So we have a regular slip pocket and a pleated slip pocket on the interior. This bag is super spacious and you can add a key leash if you want. So without further ado, let us begin this tutorial, guys. For my main fabric today, I am using Ankara fabric. Ankara is 100% cotton. There's just something about African prints that melts my heart. So this is for the main fabric. Now for the accent fabric, which is not compulsory, I am using denim. I like to combine Ankara with denim. I feel like Ankara and denim, you can never go wrong combining both. So this denim is the accent fabric. Now the accent fabric is not compulsory. You can use one fabric for the whole bag. For the lining, I am using this raincoat material, but I want the bag to be waterproof. That's why I have chosen to use a raincoat fabric. I've chosen to use soft woven interfacing according to the instructions. This is the interfacing I am using, but if you're using vinyl or cork and like waterproof canvas or so, you do not need this particular interfacing. Okay, now for the main stabilizer, I am using fusible fleece. This is the fusible fleece I am using. I need Decovil light, but in this part of the world we do not have Decovil light, so I bought this. This is a non-woven interfacing. It is like Decobond 809. For our hardware and notions, we need our continuous zipper, or if it's not continuous, you need the length to be what is required in the instructions. I have cut mine to the required length. I also burnt the zip so that it doesn't fray. Now you only need a zipper for the main closure, but if you want to add a zipper pocket, feel free to do so. Now we also need 2 18mm magnetic snap rivets. There are misconceptions that you need a ton of tools in order to install this particular closure, but you do not need a ton of tools. I'm going to show you in this video. Avajulis Craft also has a video tutorial showing how to install a magnetic snap rivet with just one tool. Okay, so this is it. I also have my zipper stopper right here and my zipper pull. Okay, this is a number 5 zipper, by the way, so number 5 zipper pull. For this project, we need 8 pieces of 7mm double cap rivets. So here we have our rivet. Now there are some steps that require us to either sew or use rivets. So if you decide to use rivets in those steps, you will need more rivets, but these are the required rivets for this particular project, double cap rivets. Okay, we need 2 swivel hooks of 3/4 inch and 2 D-rings that are also 3/4 inch. Now these are the must-haves. Now the optional ones are the swivel hook, 1 swivel hook of 3/8 of an inch for the key leash, 2 swivel hooks that are 1 inch wide, and 1 slider that is 1 inch wide for the adjustable strap, because that is optional. Here I've got all my pattern pieces cut and interfaced according to the instructions. So without further ado, people, let us get this party started, shall we? Let us first begin with our stabilizers. Now according to the instructions, if your sewing machine cannot sew through multiple layers of fabric, you could chop off 1/2 inch from the bottom, 1/2 inch, right? But I am not going to do that because I feel like my sewing machine can go through that amount of layer. So I am going to skip all that. What I am going to do next is that I am going to reduce the length of panel A2 by 3/8. So I'm going to measure 3/8 from the top, because the entire length is supposed to measure 15 1/4. So it's supposed to measure 15.25. So you could take away 3/8 from here, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the length of all of these panels measure 15.25. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. is mine all chopped off and ready to go. If you need to take out more than 3/8 of an inch, please do. If you need to take out about half an inch, please do. At the end of the day, you want the length to measure 15.25, which is 15 and 1/4. Okay, now the next step is for panel C1, which is our handle holder and D-ring holder. Okay, so this is like a 2-in-1 pattern. So I am going to read from the instructions. So it says, mind you, this is in page 12. Okay, so this is in page 12 where we've got the interfacing instructions. Okay, now it says flip the panel C1, which is the stabilizer. This space is for your decoville light. I hope we can see that. So it says flip it to the wrong side and fold the lengthwise, so the panel is now in half. Now on one half, you mark half an inch. You know, if you guys can see that, you mark half an inch from the rounded edge, then you measure and mark another 1 inch from the previous point that you marked. So that is what I have done already. I have already made an adjustable strap of camera, so I am going to go ahead to make the top handle strap. Here we are supposed to cut off the fabric to the shape of the stabilizer. I already did that to the side, so I am going to do the middle for you guys on camera. So I already drew a line at the midpoint. Make sure you're not cutting the stabilizer, okay? I don't know if you guys noticed, but I doubled this particular stabilizer because I don't like what one layer feels like. So this is it. You want to make sure you have enough folding allowance. Now the next step for me is to glue down the raw edges to the wrong side of my decoville light. So there is an instruction that says if you know that your sewing machine cannot sew through so much layers, then you should trim off 1/8 of an inch away from the long side. So from this point right here all the way down to this point, and the other side trim off 1/8 of an inch. So when you fold, make sure you have at least 1/8 of an inch, so that when you top stitch, it does not go through all those layers. But my sewing machine can take that much bulk, so I'm just going to fold mine to the edge of the stabilizer. And when you get to this corner, guys, you want to make sure that you shape it to the shape of the corner. Okay, we are only folding the long sides, we are not folding the short ends yet. I'm using contact cement for my glue. You could use double-sided tape, you could use fabric glue, but I have chosen to use contact cement because at the moment I have excess of it. So next up is this area right here, the shorter ones. Now it is time for us to glue this shorter ends. So I'm just going to push this in like so. So starting from one side, from one end, going to push it in, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. Now I am going to fold in the short ends. You want to pinch it at the corners so that it takes the shape of the corner. So now that that is done, this is what we've got. I am going to trim the excess at the corners. Now that that's done, the next thing for me to do is to hammer it down. So every corner where we have the plates, I'm going to hammer it down. This is a regular household hammer. You can also use a steel roller to roll it, but you want to make sure that you are trimming off this point. Okay, so now that I have got this ready, the next thing for me to do is to fold like so. Now if you have a steel roller, make sure you roll, especially at this fold, in order to make it crisp. I am just going to press. Now that I've got that done, I am going to top stitch all around it. And for the top stitching, you want to make sure that you are starting at one of the shorter ends and you end at one of the shorter ends so that your back stitches do not show. Okay, so I'm going to keep this aside and I am going to start working on my key leash. The key leash is totally optional. You do not need to make the key leash, but I prefer to have a key leash in my bag. So I'm just going to first fold it in half like so. Then I am going to bring the long edges to the middle. I am going to iron. I'm going to do the same to the other side. And I am going to fold in half. It's just like you're making an adjustable strap. Now I am going to clip everything together, wrong sides touching. I forgot I'm supposed to fold in one end. So let's fold. We are folding this short end. So this short end that does not have the interfacing on it, we are folding to the wrong side, like so. So I folded and I'm bringing it back in. Then I am going to fold again. So now that this is done, I am going to sew 2 straight stitches on both sides. So now it's time for me to start top stitching. Like I said earlier, I am going to start at the shorter end and we are top stitching with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. At this point, you can decide to use a rivet, but I'm just going to sew a straight stitch. So that's for my key leash. Let me finish this up. In order to finish this up, I need this. I should have done this while I was gluing this, but I'm going to keep this aside and I am going to glue this down and come back. At this point, if you feel like the fabric you have is too much, you can trim it down. You can decide to trim it down, okay? Before I go further, I am just going to bring the pattern in order to transfer the markings. You could transfer it to just one side, but I am going to transfer it to both ends. Markings are transferred in, so I am going to go ahead to fold. So I am done. I also did the other sides with the accent fabric. You can also transfer the markings to the right side of the panel, okay? You don't have to do it on the wrong side of the panel. I'm going to start folding the long sides first. So this is why I said you could transfer the markings to the right side, because by the time you fold, you could cover up the markings on the wrong side. Now at this point where the curve is, you could take your scissors or your snip and you could snip the curve, but I really do not like to snip the curves. I just like to fold instead of snipping. Now you want to make sure that the pleats are to the wrong side of the panel and you don't have pleats on the right side. So this is what we've got on one side. Let me do the other side. So I'm just going to snip the other side in order to show you that you can snip if you want to. Make sure you are not snipping the stabilizer. You want to make sure you are snipping just the fabric, okay? Alright, so here we go. Now you want to be careful. You want to make sure that you are not folding the stabilizer, okay? So this is one side done and ready to go. I am going to go ahead and do the rest. Now that I am done folding to the wrong side, I am going to snip and cut off the excess at the pleats, just like we did for the top handle. So anywhere we've got pleats, anywhere we've got bumps, I am going to cut that down. I hope you guys can see what I am doing. Now after that is done, I am going to hammer everything down so that it is flat. So now that I am done with hammering, this is what we've got. You can see how flat that is. So now I am going to take all 4 of them to the sewing machine and I am going to top stitch all around. You want to try as much as possible to start and stop your top stitching at the middle. So this is what we've got. Remember I said you should start and stop your stitching at the middle. So all you have to do is fold it this way, find the middle and start your stitches there. And do not forget guys, do not forget to burn the threads, okay? Okay guys, it is time for me to get the top handle finished. So first off, I am going to mark the midpoint like so. I'm just going to use a pen to straighten that out. Going to do the same to the other side. So now I'm going to mark half an inch. So half an inch is literally where the hole is. So here we go. I have my midpoint right here and the half an inch line. Now guys, before we move on, I have decided that I am going to punch holes on one side of the top handle connector. So this is the side where we have the half an inch mark. I am going to punch holes on the other side, okay? So now I'm going to fix in the swivel hook like so on both sides. So now I'm going to place the short end right here on that half an inch mark. like so. I am just going to center it, and I am going to flip this back. I know this is black and it's not really going to show very well on camera, but what I am just doing now is punching a hole through all layers of this panel so that I can fix in my rivets. I'm going to bring this back. Now I'm going to do the same to this part. Now, like I said earlier, you could use a double-sided tape to hold all the panels together before you punch your holes, okay, so that nothing is shifting out of place. Okay, I have holes on all sides. So now I am going to fix in my rivet. So yeah, I've got my rivet set. So let me just give you guys a tip. You want to make sure that you set this lower parts first, so it holds the connector in place. So when you want to set this this part, you have to pull this, just give it a little tug, a little pull it out of the way, then you set in this rivet. Okay, so guys, my top handle is ready. So for the front panel, the front and the back, I am going to place them right sides touching. So the main panel and the lining, I am going to place right sides touching, and I am going to sew with the mentioned seam allowance, and we are sewing only at this top. Okay, so this is it. I am done sewing. I am going to press this open. Oops. If you have a steel roller, you could use your steel roller or finger press, whichever one you prefer. But I am going to use my iron to press this open. Now that I'm done pressing that, I am going to press this top. So we are going to press in such a way that we cannot see the lining, in such a way that we are not able to see the lining from the top. Okay. So after that is done, I am going to take this to the sewing machine. I am going to top stitch. You could trim off your seam allowance at the beginning point so that you don't have too much bulk when you want to sew all the panels together. So I'm just doing that now just to show you guys. So guys, now I am done top stitching. This is what I have got. Now before I go ahead and paste these panels together, I am just going to place this right in the center. I am going to center it like so. I am attaching it to the main panel since I cannot iron the lining panel. Do not want to do this, you could use leather washers. So if you have scraps of leather or vinyl, it doesn't have to be inside the panel. Okay, you could just, when you are fixing your magnetic snap, you could add it to it. Now I am going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to paste the lining panel to the main panel. So yeah, I've got the lining panel already pasted to the main panel. So now I am going to mark the midpoints. So I'm going to fold this in half like so. And I am going to mark the midpoints. That didn't work. So in half like so. Make sure you're using a disappearing pen or a chalk. So this is my midpoints From this midpoint, I am going to mark half an inch downwards. So this right here is my half an inch point. I am going to do the same to this side. Now that I have my half an inch marked, I am going to go ahead to do the other marking according to what is in the instructions, okay? Okay, so I've got this line marked. I am going to do the same to this side. So now I am going to set both of these aside so that I can work on this panel A. So I am going to go ahead to do the next step. So what are we doing? So just to have my markings on both sides. I'm going to do the same to the other side. You could draw the line straight across, or you could have it in your seam allowance like I've done, just small markings. Okay, so now the next step is for me to place the pocket panels on the lines that I have marked. So this is my line right here. Just going to place that so that the edges align. So going to do the same to the other side. Place both sides so that the edges align. So this gives us an idea of what our pocket is going to look like. Now that I've got everything clipped in place, both panels are clipped in place, the next thing I am going to do now is that I am going to top stitch on this straight line in order to close the pockets. So this is it. I have top stitched, and now we have an idea of what our pocket is going to look like. And our bag is also coming to life. So I am going to remove the clips on either sides so that I can punch my hole on the mark we had earlier. So this was the mark we had earlier. I am just going to pin in order to make sure that everything is flat. And I am going to punch a hole, and the hole is going to go through all panels. So this is my hole punched and ready to go. I am going to do the same to the other side. I'm done punching my holes on all panels. Now I am going to punch my holes on my scrap fleece. These are going to serve as washers. At this point, you don't need to fuse them to the panels, but you can do so if you want. So now it's time for me to install my magnetic snap rivets. Let me install the milled sides first. So the milled side goes on the pocket side. I'm going to attach the cap. And the female side goes on the main panel like so. I'm going to attach this. Let's see, I want to make sure that I have at least an 1/8 of an inch. Let's put it this way. At least an 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to put in the cap. This magnet is so strong, guys, so strong. I'm going to leave everything that I'm using linked in the description box for you, okay? So I am going to set them individually with just the rivet setting rod, okay? So what we are going to do, I'm going to do this on the floor, but I just want to explain quickly what we are going to do. So I am using only this tool, the rivet setting rod. I have nothing else to install this snap closure with. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to place this on a flat surface like so. So if you're using your hand wheel, you place this the way you're supposed to do. But I am doing this on the floor, so I'm just going to place it like so, and I'm going to put this on top. I am going to eat, and I am going to set. The same goes for this one. I am going to put this side on a flat surface like so. I am going to eat from the cap, and I am going to set this in place. So this is it, all set and ready to go. All set and ready to go. Now I am going to base this in place. I am just going to put this back on that line, on the line like so. You want to make sure it is not flat like this when you're sewing it in. You want to make sure that you align the raw edges so that they are on the same line. Then you baste this in place. Okay, I am going to do that to the other side. So this is it. Our pocket is coming to life. This is what we've got. Our pocket is complete. Okay, so let us move over to the next step. Now I'm going to trim off this part of the main panel that is poking out. You can decide to trim this off if you want, but I am not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. So these are my stabilizers. I am going to align them so that they match at the bottom and also at the sides. I like to face it glue side down, although we are not pressing this on, but I just like to place it glue side down. So when you place in your stabilizers, you want to make sure that you have at least half an inch at this point, right? You want to make sure that you have at least half an inch excess fabric. If you do not have at least half an inch, then you should trim down the stabilizer so that you have half an inch. So once that is done, we are going to baste. We are going to first pin everything in place or clip everything in place. Then we are going to baste on 3 sides. Okay, we are not basting at the top. We are only going to baste on the 3 sides. Okay, so I've got the stabilizer based to the main panel. So I am going to trim off any excess stabilizer that I've got poking out like this. Okay, so this is it. Our main panels front and back is ready. Now I am going to move over to the side panels. It's just the same process. The only difference is that we are not adding the magnetic snap rivet. Okay, so I'm going to place this right side touching like so, and I am going to sew this top straight across. So now, just like the main panel, I'm going to open this. You could finger press, you could use a steel ruler, you could iron. I'm going to finger press, and I'm going to flip this back so that they are wrong sides touching, and I am going to top stitch right across. And after top stitching, I am going to baste the lining panel to the main panel. And remember, you could also trim off your seam allowance like so in order to reduce bulk, or you could trim off the entire seam allowance. So this is all sewn. I am going to move over to the next step, which is to mark our horizontal line, right? I usually and always do not know the difference between vertical and horizontal. Now I am going to keep this aside, and I am going to bring the main body, and I am going to also mark my points, or you could mark it out in a straight line if you want. My points are marked. I don't know if you guys can see them on camera. Now I am going to place the bottom panel on those points. I'm going to clip them in place. Now that I am done clipping, I am going to take this to my sewing machine. I am going to top stitch. You want to hold the panel like this and you top stitch so that everything is flat and there is no bulging. Okay, I am done top stitching. Now I am going to cut off the excess at the corner. So now that that is done, the next step is to sew a straight stitch. So we are going to sew this on both ends in order to form our pockets. Okay, so this is it. Our pockets is formed. Now the next step is to get our stabilizer, and we are going to repeat the same thing that we did for the main panel. We are going to sew it in, and we are going to make sure that we have at least half an inch at the top. Okay, so this is my side panel already and good to go. Now I'm going to bring the main panel. I'm going to bring the side panel and the main panel, and just like this, you guys can see what I'm showing you. So one main panel, one side panel. I am going to place them so that they are right sides touching, and I am going to try as much as possible to align the pocket seams right here. I am going to try as much as possible to align the pocket seams. You could also add double-sided tape to this side. You could add it to the seam allowance. Make sure it's not showing from the outside, just within the seam allowance, and that holds the sides together. So I'm going to do that for this one. Then I'm going to bring the other one, and I'm going to do it the same way. Okay, so just like it is facing me like so, the main panel is to my left, the side panel is to my right. I am going to place them right sides touching like so. I am going to stitch from the top. I'm going to pivot at this corner, and I am going to end my stitch half an inch before I get to the end. So I'm just going to measure that out. Half an inch is here. So this is where my stitch is going to end. Okay, just half an inch. My stitch is going to end here. So this is what we've got sewn and ready to go. Guys, at this point where the pockets meet, you may need to use a hump jumper, and if you do not have a hump jumper, please improvise. Okay, so now that this is done, I am going to place one panel like so, right side facing me, and I am going to take the other panel right side touching the other panel on my table. I am going to align them like so, and I am going to repeat the same steps. Remember, we didn't stitch all the way to the bottom, half an inch before you get to the end. That is what you are going to do. So this is it. Our main panels and side panels are sewn together. So what I am going to do now is to finish the bottom. Okay, so remember, we didn't sew all the way to the end. I am just going to press this. Now guys, remember at the beginning I said if your sewing machine cannot take so much bulk, we should reduce about half an inch from the bottom. This is what I was referring to. Okay, so now you want to place this in such a way that the side panel, this part, is pressed inwards like so, and also this part is pressed inwards like so. Okay, if you're having difficulty folding this part because of the bulk, you want to make sure that you snip inwards like so. I don't know if you guys can see what I did right there. You just make a slit like so, so it is easier for you to fold, but make sure that the slit is not more than half an inch. Okay, so we are going to fold that and we are going to sew right across. So that's done. This is what we've got. Now I am going to trim my seam allowance, and at this point you want to, you know, the same way we do with corners when we are making pockets or so, you want to trim this side, and I'm going to trim the seam allowance to off the sides. Okay, so I am done trimming off the seam allowance. I have blisters now. I am done trimming off the seam allowance. Now I am going to turn this to the right side. Want to make sure you are poking out the corners. So this is it, all ready and good to go. I also used my scissors, the sharp end of my scissors, to poke out the corners so that at least we have that shape that we want. Okay guys, so now I have this. This is for the base. I am just going to put this in just to shape my corners, or to shape the bottom of the bag. Just give the bottom of the bag the shape that it's supposed to have. You could also press these points. I feel like I should do that. To press these points. So now that the main panel is completed, the next thing for me to do is to place a strip of double-sided tape all around the edges. But before I do that, I am going to trim the fraying fabrics away. So this is my strip of double-sided tape placed all around. So now I am going to fold this over by 1/2 inch. And I didn't put like one strip of double-sided tape all around. I cut it into sections according to the panels that we've got. So I am going to open section by section, and I am going to place that down. So once section is opened, you want to make sure that you are folding down by 1/2 inch. And when I fold, I am not pressing. I'm not like pressing it in, because I want to be able to rip it out if I need to adjust. So now that I've got everything folded, the next thing for me to do is to make sure that everything is straight. Okay, we don't want it wavy or curvy, we want it straight and uniform. And I am going to use my clips to support. So I'm just starting from one middle side to make sure that everything is straight. Going to do this to make sure that this part is straight. And I'm going to continue for everything. So now that everything is straight and aligned to my liking, I feel like it is good enough. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Let me know what you think, guys. So now I'm going to keep the main panel aside to work on my lining panels. Now I'm going to start working on my pockets, and I am going to work on both pockets simultaneously. Okay, so we have two slip pockets, a regular slip pocket and a pleated slip pocket, but you can decide to switch this regular slip pocket to the zipper pocket if you want. So first off, I am going to fold it in half like so, right side touching, and I am going to sew from this point. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to continue at this point, and I'm going to sew all the way down, just the way you sew regular slip pockets. Now for this particular slip pocket, right side touching, I'm going to place this right side on my work surface like so, and I'm going to place the lining right side on top. Okay, so I did add an interface into this because obviously this particular panel does not require an interfacing. The lining alone is good without an interfacing, and for this part, no interfacing also. So I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on 3 sides. So from this point all the way down and up to this point. Okay, so these are sewn and ready to go. Now I'm going to flip everything to the right side. Remember to poke out your corners. this fabric does not want to be pressed, so just going to press. I'm pressing this way because the lined fabric doesn't like getting pressed. It doesn't like getting ironed. That's why I'm pressing from the cotton side. So now I'm going to flip this back and I am going to press this area. Now that I've got that, I am just going to fold this again and I am going to press. Okay, so that is done. So what I'm going to do now is that I am going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to top stitch right across this fold that we've got. And for this, I am going to top stitch this opening that we have here. I am going to top stitch it close. Now that is done, this is what we've got. I am IK wishing that this is a part that's going to be visible on the bag. This fabric is just so beautiful, guys. And for the regular slip pocket, this is it. If at the end of doing this you got bulk at the beginning and the end right here, be sure to eat it down with a hammer or a mallet in order to make it flat. So now I'm going to first start with my slip pockets. I'm going to fold this in half to get the midpoints. Just finger press that. Now I have the midpoints. I am going to do the same. You could also iron this or you roll it in order to get the midpoints, or you simply mark it. And I'm going to place this down according to the instructions. Let's see if I can use this. Okay. This is it. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to top stitch on all 3 sides in order to form our pockets. Now this is the other lining. I'm going to repeat the same thing, which is to fold it into a finger press in order to form a crease at the middle. Now for this you can use the pattern as a guide. So for this we can use the pattern as a guide in order to get the placements. Let's see. So this is our marks. We've got our points. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I can see it. So we've got our points. I'm going to fold this also in order to get the middle. Okay, this is the middle. Okay, so now before we go further, I am going to bring the scraps. So here we have 3 scraps. Now you don't need to cut them as big as this, okay? This is just for safer purposes, but you could trim it into 2. You could trim one into 2 because at the end of the day we are putting it on the wrong side. Okay, so I already have my marks on the wrong side of the lining. Now what we are going to do, glue side down on the line. This particular fabric, I have tried it, it doesn't glue to anything, so I am just going to do this manually, okay? Going to do this one at a time. When I'm sewing it, I am going to attach this, okay? So I am not gluing this down because of the type of fabric, but I am just going to place this where it is supposed to be. And the point, you can mark this out into a straight line, into a rectangle. You just want to make sure that you are using a disappearing pen, okay? But for me, I only marked the dots. because that is enough. Okay, this is it. What I am going to do first is that I am going to sew a straight stitch right across the middle. I am going to just fix this in manually, and I am going to sew straight down. So this is it. I also did a triangle stitch. This is what the back looks like. So it is time for us to form our pleats. So I have done my markings like it is in the instructions. I really don't know if you guys can see that. So markings to the middle. Now I really do not want to pin on this fabric, so I'm just going to put this down. I'm going to use a clip to hold the pleats down, just like this. So my pleats have been clipped in place. I am just going to align the corners. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to stitch on 3 sides. Now at this point you could do slanted stitches or you could use a rivet to further reinforce it, and do not forget your scraps, although I assumed you would have already fused your scraps from the beginning. So let me take this to my sewing machine now. So people, this is what the pleated slip pocket looks like. This is the wrong side. Do not forget to burn the threads, okay? So this is what it looks like. This is also the slip pocket. This is the regular slip pocket sewn and ready to go. The pleated pockets is also sewn and ready to go. So we have our lining panels ready. I try to press this. I put the paper on top and then let's give it a little press and look what I've done. Just take a look at this, guys. Thank God this bag is for me and it's not for sale. So now let us work on our recessed zipper panels. Okay, I'm just going to put in the zipper pull. I'm done inserting the zip pull to the zipper tape. So this is the end that we are going to fold on. I have straightened the cut so that it is easier for me to work with, and on the other end I backstitch a couple of times. I had to run a couple of stitches there in order to prevent the zipper pull from flying out when I am working with it. Now the next thing for me to do is to fold the short ends of my panels. I already marked the line I am folding to this line. So for the main panel I am going to fold on both sides, but for the lining panel I am only going to fold on one side. You may not see the mark, but yeah. And now I know not to press on the lining panels, so I am going to be using double-sided tape to hold this in place. But let me start with the main panel. So we are folding the short ends. I am going to make sure that they are the same length. Okay, if you guys can see what I am doing, just to make sure that they are the same length. So this particular one is longer a bit, so I'm going to repress that down. So let us check again. It is still longer. Okay, so I am pretty satisfied with the length. I feel like now they are closer and they are more of the same length. Yeah. So I am going to work on my lining. And I don't know, maybe I should iron this on low heat. Something is telling me that it is a bad idea. But I'm going to do it. I forgot the iron settings when I was pressing the pockets. So this is my lining. I decided to press instead with the lowest hits. So guys, let us work on the zipper tip. I feel like I have done this a million times across YouTube, and there is no need for me to show you guys how to do it again because I assume you already know how to do it. So you fold to the wrong side like so. You bring this fold back to the zipper teeth like so. Okay. You want to make sure that you have a nice 90-degree angle. So this is what I've got. You could sew this by hand or sew it with the sewing machine. So this is what I've got. So I'm going to take this away and I'm going to start working with one panels at a time. So I already have my mark. I'm going to put in my double-sided tape. Where is the opening? Aligning the edges. And I am not going to put the double-sided tape all the way to the end, okay? So as you can see, I didn't put the double-sided tape all the way to the end. So I'm going to open this up. And I am going to bring the zipper tape right side. So this is right side up. The zipper tape is going to be right side on the main panel, okay? Just flipping this like so. This side, okay? So I am going to align this corner right here to the line that I marked. And I'm going to make sure that the edge of the zipper tape is on the edge of the main panel. And I am not stretching the zipper tape at all. Now you could go ahead to paste this in place, but I am going to add my lining to it. So I'm going to add my lining like so, so that the zipper tape is sandwiched between the main panel and the lining. It's time to clip, 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 clip. And you want to align this in such a way that the lining panel is shorter than the main panel, okay? Keep this. Okay, better. Now that I've gotten to the end, I am going to fold this up like so. So the raw end that we didn't fold earlier on, I am going to fold it upwards in such a way that it is shorter than the main panel. Now that that's done, I am going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to sew that in place. Here I am done stitching. So your stitches should stop here. At this point, there is no point climbing on top of the zipper teeth. We are going to do that later. So now let us work on the other panel. So guys, I have already marked the points on this panel. I'm just going to place in my double-sided tape. Make sure that the edge of the double-sided tape is to the edge of the panel, and do not put the double-sided tape all the way to the end, okay? sew right sides touching, and you want to make sure that you align the edges, and do not stretch, guys, do not stretch zipper tape. So now I am going to place in the lining panel like so, just like we did to the previous end. Remember, you should fold up so that the lining panel is a bit shorter than the main panel, and it should be the same thing here. So you should align so that the main panel pokes out more than the lining panel. So that is done. I am going to trim off the excess zipper tape that we've got here. Okay, so now I am going to bring this, I'm just placing everything back to align the panels, and it's time for me to top stitch. So I've got everything aligned. I am going to start top stitching. I am going to start from this end. I am going to top stitch all around, and I am going to do the same for the other side all around. Do not hesitate to use a hump jumper. At this point, we will need a hump jumper, and if you are using a metal tape, zipper tape, be sure to uncrank your sewing machine so that your needle does not land on the teeth and you do not break your needle. Okay guys, so here the recessed zipper panel is done and ready to go. So let us move over to the next step. I have already notched the midpoint of the recessed zipper panel I just finished. So you just fold it in half and you notch the midpoint. So now I'm going to bring my lining and panel F. So the lining with the pleated pocket and one of panel F, I am going to bring that. So we already have our midpoints from making the pleated pockets. So that is there, and I am going to place this wrong side touching the right side of my pocket. So when I am looking at my bag, if I want to open my bag, I like my zipper to open from left to right. So this is a personal preference. If you prefer the other way around, then you fix your zipper panel like so, but I like it to open this way. So I am opening from left to right. This is what I like. So now that it is like this, you can decide to paste this down. But I'm going to bring panel F and I'm going to place it so that it is right side touching the recessed zipper panel. I am going to align like so, and I am going to sew right by the interfacing. So that is done. The lining facing has been sewn to the lining panel. Now that I am done pressing, I am going to top stitch. Okay people, one part is done and ready to go. So here I've got the other lining and the other facing. I'm just going to open this up. Then I am going to do the same thing. Okay, so you just want to place them like this. It is easier this way so you don't get confused. So midpoints to midpoints. Middle to middle. Let's put this out of the way like so. So middle to middle, and I am going to place this like so, and I'm going to repeat the same step. So yeah, I've got both panels sewn and ready to go. We're almost done guys, almost done. So now we're going to place them right sides touching. So from here, just going to close this up, and I'm going to tuck this in. Let's use that. So my panels are right sides touching, and from here I am going to sew right by the interfacing. But when I get to this point, I am going to curve my hands in order to make the seam allowance bigger, because at the end of the day, when we get to this point, we are going to end at 3/4 of an inch. we are going to make sure that we end here. So right by the seam allowance, you could use a pen. You could use your pen to mark how you are going to stitch. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you end here. Okay? At this point, which is bigger than the regular seam allowance. Okay? And I'm going to do that for both sides. Breaking transmission, guys. I forgot to add my key leash. But I'm going to do that. I want my key leash where the regular slip pocket is. So at this point right here, that is where I want my key leash to be. So I am just going to do that. Okay, my key leash is in. It is just about half an inch away from the zipper panel. So yeah, key leash is in. Now let us continue. This is it sewn and ready to go. You want to make sure that you have no sharp corners on both sides. Okay, you are not turning sharply, so it's just going smooth. All right, so now that that is done, it's time for us to sew the bottom short. That is done. The bottom is done. Now I am going to trim my seam allowance. You don't have to if you do not want to, but just to reduce bulk. Okay. So now that we've got that out of the way, it is time for us to box our corners. So I'm just going to open this up. You can decide to flip your seam allowance to the opposite directions, but I am going to spread my seam allowance open. Okay, people, corners sewn. I'm going to trim this off. So this is my lining done and ready to go. Now I'm just going to trim off the fraying fabrics. Fraying really badly. I've been tampering with it. So now it's time for us to get our double-sided tape. I'm going to fix that all around. I'm going to fix it so that the double-sided tape aligns with the edge. I'm so glad we are doing a drop-in lining. I really like that. So I'm going to fix that all around and I'm going to come back. So I'm done adding my double-sided tape. Now I am going to remove them in order to fold the ends down. Please be better, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to fold it. Oops. I'm going to fold it so it is right against. So it's right against the interface. And you want to make sure that the edges are straight. You want to make sure it is not wavy. You want to get it as straight as you can. So you just use the interfacing as a guide in order to place the book. So this is it. So this is it, guys. It is straight enough in my opinion. I'm just going to give this a quick press. Now I'm going to add double-sided tape all around the edges. So I'm not adding it at the top here. We're not doing that. We're bringing it down and we're adding it all around. We're doing this so that when we sew the main panel and the lining panel together, it doesn't move. But if you are sure, if you are confident that it is not going to move, if you are confident that the panels are not going to move by the time you hold them together, then feel free to skip this step. So I'm just adding it in between. So this line right here, I'm adding it in between, and this looks pretty straight to me. Before I continue, I feel like this is straight on its own. So I'm just going to do this and I'm going to stick it all around. I'm not going to open it yet. I am not doing that yet. I am just going to bring the main panel like so. Now we have the main panel and the lining panel. Okay, so for me, this is the front of my panel. This is where I want to be the front, and from the front I want my zipper to open from left to right. So I'm going to place it just like that, which means that the slip pocket is going to be at the front. Okay, I bring both of them together. I am going to mark the midpoint. So I'm going to align this area right here. Just going to clip this down. So the seam, I'm going to clip this down. I'm going to align this area. And I am going to clip that down. So now I'm going to mark my midpoint. So I've got my midpoint marked on the lining and on the main panel. Okay, so now this again is the front, which means that this is going to be at the front. So I'm going to put this in. Okay. Oh, by the way, I think I forgot to let you know that I fused the stabilizer to the bottom of the main panel. I glued it in place using my contact cement. So putting this down, I am not opening my double-sided tape yet, guys. We are not doing that yet. So I am going to align midpoint to midpoint, and you want to place this in such a way that you are not able to see the lining from the front. Okay, you don't want the lining showing from the front. You don't want it poking out from the front. I'm just going to clip this in place. One midpoint down. I'm going to align the other midpoints. I hope you all can see what I am doing. So this is the other midpoint marked. The sides. Going to align the midpoints also. And the other side, I am going to align the midpoints. Okay, so here we have what we have. So now I am going to start removing my double-sided tape bit by bit, and I am going to start pasting them together. So this is where is the beginning of my double-sided tape. So this is where it starts, bit by bit. I hope you all can see what I am doing. So bit by bit, going to align the center. Hope you guys can see what I am doing. I feel like this is dark. I feel like the lightning is not good enough. But let me know in the comment section if there is anything you do not understand. Feel free to ask me. So now I am going to align this middle part. And I am going to stretch this out. So I'm just going to spread it out. Okay, so now that we are done with that, before I stitch, I am just going to make sure that everything is straight. Guys, is this straight? Let me know. Is this straight? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think it is straight or not? Does it look straight to you? Okay. Now, if you have a sewing machine that has a free arm or you're using a cylinder bed, this is the time for you to flex it. So we are going to sew 2 rows of stitching. You could do 1, but I'm doing 2. Now you want to start and stop your stitching at the midpoint, okay? Because we are going to cover that up later with our D-ring holder. You want to start and stop your stitching, the first one at one midpoint, then you start and stop the second one at the other midpoint. I know that we are not done yet, but I just want to take a minute to appreciate this beauty. Isn't this beautiful, people? Let me know in the comment section. Beautiful or beautiful? Gorgeous. I do not have a free arm or a cylinder bed, so I'm going to be using my flat bed in order to stitch this. So like I said, you want to start from the middle point of the side. So I'm just going to place it in like so. Okay, there we go. Let us begin. I'm just going to hold my threads. I'm going to put this in, and I am going to start sewing. You could adjust as you go so that the lining is not poking from the right side. I'm just going to cut this off. Anywhere that requires you to use the jumper, please do. So now that I am done with 2 rows of stitches, I am going to go ahead to set the connector I've already done one. I have to make the other one. So here I already have the connector with holes, and then I have holes on both sides, and I'm going to show you what to do for the next step. So like I said earlier, I already have holes on them on both sides. I punched them the way I punched the way we did for the connector. So let me mark my midpoint again. I need to figure out my midpoint again. So this is my middle right here. So this is the middle of the side panel. I'm going to bring this, which side do I want to be outside? So I'm going to make sure that the middle of my D-ring is to the middle of that line, like so. I'm going to bring this down. And what I want to do now is to mark my holes, to mark the points where the holes will go. So I'm just using this white marking tool because no other color would show. So yeah, I've got them. This is the first and this is the second. So I know where to punch my holes now. So I'm just going to punch my holes. I'm going to make sure that this is flat. You all can see what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure that this is flat, and I am going to punch my holes. So now that I've got my holes marked, I am just going to place in my rivets, and I am going to set it in place. I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to thread this in. Place this down. Put in the cap. Do the same for the other one and place in the cap. And I am going to go ahead and set this in place. After setting, the next thing is to finish our zipper end. So I'm going to cut off a little bit, about 1 inch or so, and I'm going to fix in my zipper end, and that is all. Please do not forget to like, and if you learned a thing or two, do not hesitate to subscribe. I am going to leave all the details to this pattern in the description box below. You can find all the information there, and let me know in the comment section what you think about this bag.